Hey coin lovers! Welcome to the Worth Old Coins channel, your place to discover the hidden value and rare facts about old coins. In today's video we're revealing the top 3 valuable coins, and one of them might just be in your collection. So don't skip this video, let's find out their real worth. Top 1. The 1966 quarter dollar featuring George Washington on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse is part of the long-running Washington quarter series that began in 1932. This coin represents an important transitional era in American coinage, because it belongs to the first few years after the United States Mint stopped using silver in circulating quarters. The 1966 quarter is a clad copper-nickel coin, rather than the traditional 90% silver composition that had been standard from 1932 to 1964. Notably, quarters struck in 1965, 1966, and 1967 bear no mint marks at all, a deliberate decision by the mint to discourage coin hoarding at a time of great public concern about silver disappearing from circulation. Historical context of 1966. The mid-1960s was a turbulent time in U.S. history. The country was deeply engaged in the Vietnam War, civil rights struggles were reshaping American society, and the economy was facing shifts brought on by inflation and rising demand for silver. By the early 1960s, silver prices had climbed so high that the intrinsic value of coins like dimes, quarters, and half dollars began to approach or even exceed their face value. People started hoarding them, leading to widespread coin shortages. To address this, in 1965, the Coinage Act officially eliminated silver from the dime and quarter, replacing it with the copper-nickel clad composition. The 1966 quarter was only the second full year of this new format, and its widespread circulation symbolized the successful though controversial transition away from precious metal coinage. Design: obverse, front. The obverse of the 1966 quarter features the familiar profile of George Washington, designed by sculptor John Flanagan in 1932. Washington faces left with the word "Liberty" in large letters arching above his head. The national motto, "In God We Trust," appears to his left just below his chin. The date 1966 is inscribed prominently at the bottom. On a sharply struck coin you can see fine details in Washington's hair, particularly the tied ribbon at the back. However, many coins from this era were struck in a hurry to meet demand, so weak details are common. Design: reverse, back. The reverse shows a bold heraldic eagle with outstretched wings perched on a bundle of arrows symbolizing defense and readiness. Below the arrows are 2 olive branches symbolizing peace. Above the eagle in large letters is United States of America, while below that appears the Latin motto E pluribus unum, out of many one. At the bottom is the denomination quarter dollar. This strong and patriotic design had been used on Washington quarters since 1932 and would remain until 1998, making it one of the most familiar reverse designs in U.S. coinage history. Metal composition and physical specs: the 1966 quarter is composed of outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. This clad construction was chosen to mimic the weight and ring of silver coins while dramatically reducing cost. The coin weighs 5.67 grams, measures 24.3 millimeters in diameter, and has a reeded edge. While silver quarters have a single uniform color, clad quarters show a distinct reddish copper stripe when viewed from the edge, a quick way to distinguish them. The 1966 coin, like all clad quarters, is durable, though it does not have the same intrinsic metal value as earlier silver issues. Minting policy and no mint mark. A unique feature of the 1966 quarter is its lack of a mint mark. Normally, U.S. coins carried identifying marks such as D for Denver or S for San Francisco. But between 1965 and 1967, mint marks were intentionally removed to discourage collectors and the general public from hoarding coins by location. This was part of the government's broader effort to end what officials called a coin shortage crisis. As a result, all 1966 quarters look the same regardless of where they were struck, and the only way to know the mint facility is through historical production records. Mintage and production figures: the U.S. Mint struck a massive 821,101,500 quarters in 1966, a staggering number designed to flood the economy with new clad coins and end shortages. Production took place primarily at the Philadelphia Mint, though Denver and San Francisco facilities contributed to overall coining efforts during the no mint mark era. This enormous mintage makes the 1966 quarter common, but it also means most were produced quickly, often with weak strikes or surface issues. Circulation and longevity: the 1966 quarter entered circulation quickly, and because of its base metal composition, it saw decades of heavy use. Many examples today are worn, with flat hair detail on Washington's bust and smoothing on the eagle's feathers. These circulated coins are still common in pocket change, though fewer turn up now as older coins are gradually retired from circulation. Finding uncirculated 1966 quarters with bright luster and no marks is more difficult as millions were used heavily in commerce. Collector challenges strike and condition. For collectors, the biggest challenge with 1966 quarters is finding high-quality, sharply struck coins. Many were made with worn dies or struck with insufficient pressure, leading to dull details. Marks, abrasions, and bag marks are common even on uncirculated examples due to rough handling in bulk bags. High-grade mint state examples with full detail and bright luster are much scarcer than the mintage might suggest. Because of this, professional grading services often reward premium prices for coins that achieve MS 66 or higher. Collector value. In circulated condition, the 1966 quarter is worth only its face value. In uncirculated mint state, grades values increase modestly, and MS 65 coin might sell for around $14 to $18, while MS 66 examples can bring $52 to $77. The rarest and most desirable are MS 67 coins, which can sell for hundreds of dollars with record sales exceeding $1,500 at auction for particularly flawless examples. Since the coin has no silver content, its value depends entirely on condition and collector demand. Error varieties. Like all mass-produced coins, the 1966 quarter has some error varieties that collectors pursue. These include off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and coins struck on transitional silver planchets, extremely rare and valuable if verified. Double dies and die cracks are also known but generally minor. Because 1966 was a year of experimentation and adjustment to new materials, minting errors from this year are of special interest to error specialists. Numismatic legacy. The 1966 Washington quarter symbolizes a pivotal moment in American coinage, the definitive end of silver circulation coinage. While ordinary in appearance, it reflects the economic realities of the 1960s and the government's efforts to adapt to rising metal prices and public hoarding. For modern collectors, it represents the beginning of the long, clad era of viewed as quarters, which continues today. Though not rare, it holds historic significance as part of the transition from silver to base metal in American money. Top 2. The 1967 quarter dollar of the United States belongs to the Washington quarter series, first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the bicentennial of George Washington's birth. By 1967, the design was well established: Washington's bust on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse. But the 1967 issue is far from ordinary. It represents one of the transitional years in American coinage when silver had just been eliminated from quarters and dimes. The 1967 quarter, like its 1965 and 1966 counterparts, bears no mint mark, a deliberate decision by the U.S. Mint during a turbulent period of coin shortages and hoarding. This coin is made not of silver but of a copper-nickel clad composition, and in that sense it marks the continuation of the modern quarter as we know it today. Historical context of 1967. The mid-1960s were transformative years for both the nation and its coinage. Politically, the Vietnam War dominated headlines, civil rights struggles continued, and cultural changes were sweeping across the country. Economically, the rising price of silver had triggered widespread hoarding of older coins. By 1964, it became clear that the intrinsic silver value of dimes and quarters was approaching their face value, which threatened to destabilize the monetary system. The Coinage Act of 1965 removed silver from dimes and quarters altogether, substituting clad copper-nickel planchets. The 1967 quarter is thus the third year in which quarters were made without silver, a continuation of the government's determined push to keep coins in circulation and discourage hoarding. Design: obverse, front. The obverse of the 1967 quarter continues to showcase John Flanagan portrait of George Washington the First. Youth President Washington faces left with the word Liberty arched above his head in bold letters. Just below his chin is the motto, In God We Trust. At the bottom of the obverse appears the date 1967, the only identifying year element since no mint marks were used. The portrait is rendered in neoclassical style, emphasizing Washington's calm strength and dignity. Well-struck examples show detail in Washington's hair, including the tied ribbon at the back, though many circulation strikes from this year are somewhat soft. Design: reverse, back. The reverse depicts a heraldic eagle with spread wings perched on a bundle of arrows, symbolizing strength and defense. Beneath the arrows lies a pair of olive branches, symbols of peace. The inscriptions are bold and patriotic: United States of America, arches across the top, while the Latin motto, E pluribus unum, out of many one, is set above the eagle's head. At the bottom, the denomination, quarter dollar, completes the design. This reverse was a mainstay of U.S. coinage for decades and became deeply familiar to Americans until the design was replaced by the State Quarters Program in 1999, metal composition and specs. The 1967 quarter is composed of outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. A true, clad construction. The coin weighs 5.67 grams, has a diameter of 24.3 millimeters, and features a reeded edge. When viewed from the side, the reddish copper core is visible between the silvery gray nickel layers, distinguishing it from earlier all-silver quarters that had a uniform color. The clad metal was chosen for its durability and cost savings, and while it lacks the intrinsic bullion value of silver, it proved effective for everyday commerce. No mint mark policy of 1967. One of the defining features of the 1967 quarter is the absence of a mint mark. Normally coins struck in Denver bore a D, and those from San Francisco an S. However, between 1965 and 1967, all mint marks were removed by federal order. This policy aimed to discourage the public from hoarding coins by mint location, since collectors in the early 1960s were pulling out enormous quantities of coins simply because of their mint mark differences. By eliminating mint marks, the government hoped to restore confidence and keep coins circulating. Thus, every 1967 quarter, regardless of whether it was struck in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, appears identical. Mintage and production. In 1967, the U.S. Mint struck a total of 1,524,031,848 quarters, an immense output that reflected the government's determination to flood the economy with clad coins. Most were circulation strikes, but a special type of collector issue called the 1967 Special Mint Set, SMS, was also produced. Since proof sets were suspended from 1965 to 1967, SMS coins acted as replacements struck with better dies and extra care, though not quite to proof standards. As a result, collectors today often distinguish between ordinary circulation 1967 quarters and higher quality SMS versions. Special Mint Set, SMS, quarters of 1967. The Special Mint Set quarters of 1967 hold a unique place in numismatics. These coins were produced with a satin-like finish, sharper details, and smoother surfaces compared to regular circulation strikes. While not as reflective as true proofs, they were carefully packaged and sold to collectors in sets. Over 2 million SMS sets were sold in 1967, making these coins available, but still special collectors today value them for their higher quality, and some examples show striking characteristics like cameo contrast between frosted devices and mirrored fields, which greatly increase their appeal and value. Circulation and longevity. The 1967 quarter entered circulation at a time when the public was still adjusting to clad coinage. Initially, Americans disliked the new quarters because they lacked the ring of silver and felt less precious. Still, they quickly became the norm. These coins circulated heavily for decades, and many can still be found in pocket change today. However, most surviving circulation strikes are heavily worn with flattened hair details on Washington's bust and smoothed eagle feathers on the reverse. Collector challenges. Strike quality. High-quality 1967 quarters are harder to find than one might think despite the enormous mintage. The removal of mint marks meant the mint focused on quantity over quality, and many coins show weak strikes, contact marks, or dull surfaces. Finding a coin in mint state 65 or better with bright luster, few marks, and sharp detail is far less common than raw numbers suggest. 4 SMS quarters condition is generally better, but cameo and deep cameo examples are rare and command strong premiums. Collector value. In circulated grades, a 1967 quarter is generally worth only face value. In uncirculated grades, however, values rise. A regular mint state 65 coin may fetch around $12 to $18, while MS 66 examples can reach $45 to $75. The finest known circulation strikes, graded MS 67, can bring hundreds of dollars at auction. SMS quarters are typically valued at $8 to $14, but cameo examples can reach $130 or more, and deep cameo pieces have sold for several $100s depending on grade. Error varieties. The 1967 quarter is also collected for its minting errors. Off-center strikes, double strikes, broad strikes, and clipped planchets exist from this year and are popular with error collectors. Transitional errors, such as a quarter struck on leftover silver planchets, are theoretically possible but extremely rare. Doubled die obverse and reverses exist in minor forms, though no dramatic doubled die comparable to the famous 1972 cent is known for the 1967 quarter. Top 3. The 1979 D. Washington quarter dollar is a circulation coin minted by the United States Mint at the Denver facility. It belongs to the long-running Washington Quarter series, which was first introduced in 1932. The design still carried the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse and the heraldic eagle reverse, a design that had by then been in use for nearly half a century. Unlike transitional years such as 1965 to 1967, the 1979 D quarter was fully established within the copper, nickel-clad era and struck in massive quantities to satisfy the demands of commerce. Millions of these coins flowed into circulation, making them highly familiar to the American public of the late 1970s. Historical background of the era. The late 1970s was a turbulent economic period in American history. The nation was facing inflationary pressures, rising gas prices, and economic stagnation after the shocks of the early decade. Coins like the quarter played a crucial role in daily transactions, with vending machines, toll booths, and parking meters still heavily reliant on them. By 1979, the American economy was transitioning toward more modern banking practices, but quarters were still a backbone of small change. The Washington quarter, having lost its silver composition in 1965, had by this point fully transitioned into the copper-nickel-clad composition. The public had accepted the change, and the government was producing them in record numbers to keep up with demand. Obverse design George Washington portrait. The obverse design of the 1979 D quarter features John Flanagan portrait of George Washington modeled from Jean-Antoine Houdon's 18th century sculpture. Washington faces left, his hair tied in a ribbon at the back. The word "Liberty" spans across the top rim of the coin, and the motto "In God We Trust" is engraved to the left of Washington's profile just beneath his chin. At the bottom center, the date 1979 is clearly inscribed. To the right of the date appears the small D mint mark, denoting that this coin was struck at the Denver Mint. Reverse design, the heraldic eagle. The reverse continues with the heraldic eagle design that had been in place since 1932. The eagle is shown with wings outstretched, perched on a bundle of arrows representing defense and readiness. Beneath the arrows lie olive branches symbolizing peace. Surrounding the design are inscriptions: United States of America at the top, E pluribus unum just above the eagle's head, and $quarter at the bottom. This combination of imagery of strength, peace, unity, and national identity was seen as highly patriotic and remained a staple until the state quarters program replaced it in 1999. Metal composition and specifications. By 1979, the composition of the quarter was firmly standardized in clad coinage. The coin consists of outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. Its total weight is 5.67 grams with a diameter of 24.3 millimeters and a reeded edge. This clad construction gave the coin durability for circulation and ensured that its intrinsic metal value remained well below its face value, preventing hoarding. When viewed from the side, the reddish copper core is visible, contrasting with the silvery white surface of nickel. Mintage and distribution. The Denver Mint produced an astonishing 489,789,780 quarters in 1979, nearly 500 million coins. This huge mintage was intended to meet both domestic demand and replace older worn coins in circulation. With such large numbers, the 1979 D quarter is not a rare coin in circulated condition. However, finding coins in pristine high mint state grades is more challenging, due to mass production and the tendency of coins to pick up contact marks during handling. Minting practices at Denver in 1979. The Denver Mint had become highly mechanized by the late 1970s, operating high-speed presses to churn out coins at massive volumes. Quality control was focused on producing usable coins rather than perfection. As a result, many coins exhibit weak strikes or bag marks from mass handling. Still, the Denver Mint was known for producing generally better struck coins than the Philadelphia Mint in this era, and thus many collectors today find that 1979 D quarters have stronger details than their no-mint mark Philadelphia counterparts. Circulation role. The 1979 D quarter entered daily commerce immediately after striking. These coins were widely used in vending machines, payphones, laundromats, and gas stations, forming an essential part of American life. Unlike half dollars, which were falling out of favor, and dollar coins, which struggled for acceptance, the quarter remained one of the most popular denominations. This heavy circulation means that most 1979 D quarters today are well worn, often with smooth surfaces and flattened details, especially on Washington's hair and the eagle's breast. Collector value in circulated condition. In ordinary circulated condition, a 1979 D quarter is typically worth only face value 25 cents. Billions were made, and even though many have been lost over time, there is no real shortage. However, collectors often seek examples in higher uncirculated grades which can carry premiums. This is especially true of coins with strong strikes, good luster, and minimal contact marks. Collector value in uncirculated and mint state uncirculated examples of the 1979 D quarter are more valuable. In mint state 63, MS 63, coins are worth about $1.50 to $2.50. In MS 65, values rise to around $6 to $12. In MS 66, where coins are much scarcer due to Denver's mass production style, prices can range from $75 to $140. The rarest are MS 67 graded examples, which may sell for several $100s, as these are exceptionally difficult to find without flaws. Error varieties and collecting interest. Collectors also look for errors and varieties among 1979 D quarters. Some notable errors include off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, and double strikes. While no major double die varieties are famous for 1979, D minor doubling exists and is of interest to specialists. Dramatic minting errors, particularly those showing strong off-center strikes with full dates, can sell for significant premiums, sometimes in the hundreds of dollars. Comparison with Philadelphia and San Francisco issues. In 1979, quarters were also struck in Philadelphia, with no mint mark, and San Francisco, for proof coins. The Philadelphia coins tend to have weaker strikes and more contact marks compared to Denver's output. Meanwhile, the San Francisco Mint produced proof quarters for collector sets with mirror-like fields and frosted devices. Collectors often compare these three mint outputs to appreciate the differences in quality and finish. The 1979 D stands as the most abundant and widely circulated of the three. Thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe my channel for more videos.